Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. How to get a job, particularly in these tough times, is a challenge that lots of people have. And so I wanted to reach out to Judy Williams, who is a career coach and resume writer based in New York. She leverages her experience in human relations to help clients throughout their job search process. Judy, welcome to our show. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So tell me, how did you get into the career coaching resume writing business?
It was actually a side gig for me. I had left human resources to work in real estate, and I was writing resumes on the side as a way to earn money, extra money on the side, since real estate is a commission-only business. And then it just organically grew. I started getting more clients, and a lot of these clients asked for career coaching services, asked me to help them with their interviews. And it just got to a point where my side business became more of my main business.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And so what are some of the recommendations that you make? Or, in looking for a job, what are some of the secrets?
So one thing is, I try to make sure that my clients have a game plan before they just start submitting resumes. I know people, especially in times of desperation, they like to shoot off 100 resumes a week. But I like for them to think about the type of job that they want to have. I want them to be able to assess those skills against the job postings that they see to make sure that they check off all the boxes with the minimum requirements. I want to make sure that their LinkedIn profiles are set, that they're interview ready, meaning that, they're prepped to give interviews ahead of time instead of waiting for the last minute to prepare. So I like them to get into the right headspace. Okay,
that sounds good. So let's break that down. So how do you figure out, you said they've got to know what type of job they want. How do you do that? Lots of people, don't even know. They struggle.
It requires a lot of self-reflection. What do you want your day-to-day to look like at work, right? What type of responsibilities do you see yourself doing every day? What do you want your lifestyle to be? Because you want to have a job that will also allow you to have a life outside of work.
The old, do we live to work or work to live?
That's the question. And that's something that people have different motivations. They have different values when it comes to work. And that's one of the things that they must think about when they're conducting their job search as well.
Okay. One of the other things you said is you have to make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date and good. How do you do that? Like, are there rules? Are there suggestions you've got on how to make a good LinkedIn profile?
For one, you want to make sure everything is up to date in terms of your experience. And two, you want to make sure that you incorporate certain keywords that recruiters may use when searching for candidates, when sourcing for candidates using LinkedIn, right? You also want to have a good engagement strategy. You want to be able to connect with people, possibly recruiters who recruit in fields that you're interested in getting into. You want to post topics that are of interest to you, preferably topics that are related to the career that you want to have, the jobs that you want to have.
Really, that's interesting. So as part of your engagement strategy, you recommend to clients that they post articles that are relevant to the job they're looking for.
Articles, share their opinions on the articles as well. Comment on other people that have posted relevant topics. LinkedIn is a great platform to showcase a person's expertise on a specific topic or area. And let's say for someone who's in the job market that has 10, 20 plus years of experience in marketing, for example, I think it would be a great platform for them to showcase their expertise when it comes to branding and marketing strategies, because you never know who's going to come across your profile.
Right.
could be an owner, founder of a startup company that's looking to put together a team, right? And they know that they need somebody with real good knowledge of marketing and branding to help them get started, right? So you just never know. You never know. So you do want to showcase your expertise on LinkedIn, and that would be one way for people who find you to also, really to start following you and to get to know you, and then to eventually want to make a connection with you.
I love the way that you described it, having an engagement strategy. That's a term I haven't heard before. And I want to come back and ask you more questions about it in the future. We're chatting tonight with Judy Williams. She is a career coach and resume writer. We're going to take a break and come back more with Judy in just a minute. Stay with us. We're chatting about getting a job tonight with Judy Williams, who is a career coach and resume writer in New York. She leverages her experience in human relations to help clients throughout their job search process. And we were just talking, Judy, about figuring out what it is you want to do, which is key. And number two, getting your LinkedIn profile, you said, up to date, and using some of the keywords and things like that that are appropriate so that recruiters can find you. And then you said something interesting, that's you've got to have a good engagement strategy. And part of your engagement strategy was posting on LinkedIn. What are some other parts of a good engagement strategy?
Building connections. The other part of the job search process is that you want to be able to tap into the hidden job market. And to tap into the hidden job market, you want to be able to leverage the connections that you built to reach out to people who may be able to potentially help you with your job search, right? So it's reaching out to them, setting up introductions, informational meetings, asking them to keep an eye out if any opportunities arise. These are great ways to use LinkedIn to engage with other people to help you with your job search.
And you're doing this not just with LinkedIn, but with other connections that you've got, I presume.
Absolutely. Personal connections as well. Family, relatives, friends, colleagues, former supervisors, especially if you had a good rapport with them, definitely you want to send out maybe just an email, let them know what's going on, let them know that you're currently seeking new job opportunities. This is where you're thinking about in terms of your career direction, and to ask them to keep an eye out if anything pops up that they think you would be a good fit for, and to send your resume with that.
And this engagement strategy, do you submit it to writing? Do you put it down on paper?
No, email is fine.
But your strategy, you put down on paper that you're going to have this strategy of engagement.
I would prefer pen and paper to map it out. How often, especially if you have a busy life. So how often are you going to be engaged in LinkedIn, right? Can you spend 15, 20 minutes a day to post something of interest, to like and comment on other people's posts, to connect with other people through LinkedIn? Can you commit to writing an article once a week or once a month, right? How are you, or can you reach out to two people, two personal connections and two professional connections a week to set up meetings, or to ask them to keep an eye out open if there's any job opportunities? So
I had a former mentor tell me to sit down and write down 50 names of people that I could reach out to. And not to ask for a job, but to say that I was thinking about a change, and ask for advice, and then ask for them to keep their ears open for opportunities. But and the way he described it was that he said that a lot of people that they appreciate being asked for their opinion, and they don't want to be asked to do something unless they want to do it. But an opinion is a different thing, and so you can say, blah, blah, blah. I really respected, this part of our prior relationship, and just wanted to ask your opinion as to whether I should look for a job in this new area. Exactly. What do you think of that?
I like that approach as well. I think there's a lot of approaches to contacting your connections, especially when you reach out to personal connections and supervisors, colleagues that you worked with in the past. You can definitely personalize it. Let them know that you want to get into this profession or a type of job. What do they think about it? They know you, or you know me as a colleague. Do you think I have the required skills for it? Right? I mean, you could definitely draft it to ask for advice and ask for opinion, rather than just sending them an email and saying, I'm looking for a job. Can you keep an eye out open? Right.
And you said you got to reach out to 2 people a week. So there's something about creating daily habits in your success strategy, I presume.
Absolutely. 2 is not the requirement. You can do more or less. It depends on the person, but you definitely want to set daily goals. Job searching is basically like a full-time job, or
it's a full-time job looking for a job.
Exactly. But you want to make it as structured as you can. And so I like to advise my clients to wake up every morning, have their morning routine, and then set goals for themselves for that day on what they want to accomplish, right? So it could be sending out 3 resumes a day, and reaching out to 2 recruiters to set up informational meetings, and sending out emails or calling personal connections to talk with them and to discuss your job search, right? You want to have goals for that day, just like you would, your to-do list, to kind of keep you on track.
My sense of recruiters are that they work for their clients, not for the potential employees.
Right.
And so, if they don't have an assignment in that area, are they really going to take your call and want to visit you and meet you? Absolutely.
There are a lot of recruiters that are willing to help individuals, job seekers searching for a job. They will give great advice. If there is a potential position that they're recruiting for, they can be their best advocates to their, best advocates for the clients, for the candidates to their clients. Sometimes hiring managers are unable to see outside the picture when it comes to finding the perfect person to fulfill a role. And a recruiter can kind of guide that hiring manager to see something in a specific candidate that they hadn't seen yet.
Right. Are most jobs that are available posted, or is there sort of a non-public job market?
Well, so with the hidden job market, there are usually jobs that haven't been posted yet. And so the company will send out an email to their employees saying, look, we have this job that's vacant. If you know of anybody that's interested, please encourage them to submit their application. You can also, there's sometimes jobs that just haven't been created yet until the right conversation happens, right? We talked about LinkedIn and having an engagement strategy. Well, I said earlier, you never know who will come across your profile. It could be a founder of a startup company, and they say, you know what, I really like this person's thought process when it comes to marketing and branding. I think they would be a good fit, and just create a position for that.
Now, pre-COVID, people would recommend you go out to networking events. Do you still recommend that? And during a COVID time period, what's the replacement?
I think it depends. There are a lot of virtual job fairs now still going on. So I would definitely take advantage of that. If there are in-person job fairs in the locations and you want to go in person, by all means go. I'm sure there's a lot of restrictions regarding that for in-person job fairs. I would say do a mix, network in person if you can, network online if you can. There's not just one method. I think the more diverse your strategy is, the better.
Now, part of your business is writing resumes. Mm-hmm. How do you write a resume for someone you don't know?
You have a discussion with them. You get to know their background and their goals. And you start from there. I like to look at the type of jobs that they're going after to help me target their resumes for that. I ask them to send me what their professional accomplishments were. So I send them a worksheet to complete, and we go from there. And then after I send them the draft, it's a collaborative effort. So we work together to refine the resume before it's finalized and set.
And so are there some rules or suggestions or principles that you have for resume writing today?
The most important is to make sure that your resume is accomplishment oriented. That's really important to help make sure that you stand out against the competition. And it helps give the hiring manager, it helps them envision the impact that you can have in that role.
Right.
So if you can quantify the accomplishments, the better, So you don't want a task-oriented resume that looks like another job description.
Really? And so it's just not a list of tasks, but the new employer is going to want to know what you've done.
Exactly. And you can list the accomplishments showing how you leverage your skills and your knowledge to make an impact, to add value to your current and previous employers. Right. A lot of these hiring managers will know the day-to-day responsibilities of the job that you're applying for. So you really wouldn't have to go through it, especially if you're experienced.
Right.
They want to see what value have you added. If you're a good problem solver, if you're a goal getter, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. So they want to see, when they only have a few seconds to look at your resume, they're going to be drawn to the person that shows that they have gone above and beyond to address a problem, to achieve or exceed a goal, right? It just adds a layer of credibility, because anybody can say, I have experience in X, Y, and Z. You use the resume to demonstrate that you have the experience in X, Y, and Z. And the best way to do that is to highlight your key accomplishments.
Is there a recommendation on how long a resume should be?
It depends. For me, the average is 2 pages. For someone with an entry-level position, I would say less than 5 years. I like to keep it a single page, especially for students, recent graduates.
Right.
But teaching CVs, medical CVs, then tend to be over 2 pages. Federal resumes can be anywhere between 5 to 10 pages long.
5 and 10 pages long.
Federal resumes. So they want every detail of every job you've ever had. It's a different set of requirements for federal resumes.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
And what do you put pictures on resumes these days? Photos?
No, in the US, that's actually not suggested at all.
Really?
Especially to mitigate any potential discrimination.
Okay. Education first or after jobs?
It depends. If you're a student, recent graduate, I would say put the education on top. If you're somebody who's been out of school for a few years, I would say the education should go on the bottom.
Volunteer work? Charitable work?
Volunteer work, especially if it's relevant to the position, I would say add your volunteer work, especially if you have been out of work for a while, but you use your time out of work to volunteer. I would definitely add that. Work experience is work experience, whether you've been paid for it or not.
GPA or marks or any of that kind of stuff? Do you put it on?
If you're a recent graduate student, I would say put your GPA only if it's a 3.5 or above.
Any other suggestions for resumes?
No, I would say keep the format simple. No, you want to be aware of the ATS systems, right? So you want to avoid 2-column resumes, fancy designs, images, text box, graphics that may cause a problem for the ATS to read it properly.
What's ATS?
An applicant tracking system.
What's an applicant tracking system?
So it's a way to sort of help recruiters and HR professionals organize their recruiting process. So when a candidate submits a resume online, it goes through the company's applicant tracking system, where it collects all the resumes, and they can use the applicant tracking system to filter certain resumes using specific keywords.
Okay. We're chatting tonight with Judy Williams. She's a career coach and resume writer in New York. She's got a bunch of really great suggestions. We're going to take a break and come back, and I'm going to ask her about her own personal career path because it's pretty fascinating. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Judy Williams. She is a career coach and resume writer. She's got some great suggestions on how to get your mindset straight as to what you want to do, update your LinkedIn profile, have an engagement strategy, get out and connect and network with people, write a really good, powerful resume. And then she talked about getting interview ready. And so we may actually chat with her about being interview ready in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to ask you, if I could, about your own career path, because it's kind of interesting. And I went to your website, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it here for a second, because it's really quite fascinating. My path was not always clear, and like so many others, I found myself wandering, confused, and straying from my life goals. As millions of adults before me have done, I resigned myself to living a life that would make others happy, paying no attention to what was in my heart and soul. Living for other people's expectations led to an intense period of depression, broken and frayed relationships, and I eventually became a college dropout. While dropping out of college was a huge disappointment to my family, it was the single most important turning point in my life. Wow, that doesn't sound like a career coach kind of intro. That sounds like a health and wellness, or I'm going to go on a eat, pray, love trip, or go to Machu Picchu, or do the Santo Domingo, whatever it's called, the trek in Spain. Yeah. Tell me, why was this so helpful? You were in depression, broken and frayed relationships because you were living for other people's expectations. Tell me about that, if you could.
So growing up with parents who were born and raised in different countries, not in the United States, and they themselves didn't have college educations, it was really put upon me the importance of getting a college degree, to the point where you felt pressured that it's something that you have to do, right? And I tried. Right after high school, I went to college not knowing exactly what it is that I wanted to do. I may have switched my major 2-3 times, which is common, but I was picking majors that I thought would be approved by others because they were considered practical, right? Like accounting. And I hated accounting, right? Eventually that did a number with my mental state. And I felt extremely depressed. I didn't want to be in college. I wasn't even sure if college was for me. And I got to a point where I said, I have to drop out. I have to just see what's out there, just breathe, take a moment for myself. And if I go back to college, then I go back to college. If I don't, I don't. But I couldn't continue on this path where I was just miserable, and family could see that I was miserable, but for them, it was just a price to pay to get a college education. But that's not what I wanted.
So why was it a big turning point?
So when I dropped out, I worked for a few offices, law firms, medical offices as a receptionist. And after about 2 years, I realized that's not something I want to do, right? And I decided to really reflect and think about what it is that I want to do with my life. Or if I don't know what I want to do with my life, if I go to college, what is it that I want to study? Because I believe that if I picked something that I truly like to study, I would do extremely well in. And thinking about high school and junior high, English was my best subject. And I loved reading. I enjoyed writing a lot. So I decided to major in English, not knowing exactly where it was going to head me. When I did that, the first thing that people thought I would do was go into teaching, which is not really what I thought. But after I got my bachelor's and my master's, I ended up getting an e-marketing associate position with the Metropolitan Opera. And my life just took off from there. I went from that to human resources, doing that for several years, then going into real estate. And I look back and I don't regret it. You know, I may not have been a teacher or an English professor, but everything that I've done in my career is writing was a big part of it. So,
And coaching, you're effectively a teacher today.
you can say that. Yeah.
So your bachelor's was in English literature. What was your master's as well?
My first master's was in English literature, and my second master's was in real estate management.
Oh my God. So for someone that dropped out of college, you've now got 3 degrees, a bachelor and 2 masters. Impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where'd you do this? What degrees? Hofstra University?
Yeah, I got my bachelor's and my master's in English at Hofstra University, and then I got my master's in real estate management at NYU.
Okay. And why did you not stay in the real estate business?
Simply because what was my side business took off. And I guess at a really good time, because that's when I would say my real estate business started to slow down.
Yep.
As a rookie in real estate, especially I worked Manhattan, it's kind of difficult to break in when you're competing with veterans who've been in it for 30, 40 years and have a huge book of clients.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things where it was just great timing. And I decided to take off with it.
You say on your website again that I dedicated my time and energy to understanding my inner truth. Who was I? What was my passion? Where did I want to go in my life? How does one answer their inner truth and where they want to go and who they are and what's their passion? How do you answer that?
It takes a lot of self-exploration, and it's not something that can be done in a day, in a week, in a month, or even a year. It's continuous. In my opinion, you have to just live a life that is happy for you, right? Doing things that you believe feed your soul, make you happy, are aligned with your values and your goals in life. And that may change, in a couple of years, but that's the beauty of self-discovery and self-exploration, is that you're continuously learning about yourself, and it changes. My career path is evidence of that. I went from e-marketing to HR to real estate to career coaching. But I found in all of those that what I truly loved the most was helping people, because that was basically what I did in every position.
And then in 2018, you got certified as a transformative life coach. What's a transformative life coach?
Transformational life coach is just basically helping people transform their lives. As I said earlier, helping them to discover themselves and to help them live a life that is true and authentic to them.
And who certifies you to do this?
I got my certification at the Transformational Academy. It was an online certification course that I took.
And are there special tools or procedures that this transformation life coach tool uses?
It's a lot of guidance, lectures. They have, certain resources that you can use when you're coaching clients. You don't have to use them. They have mentorship resources, so you can always reach out to them if you need support with your career coaching, with your life coaching services, or if you have any questions, you can always go to them. So it's a good community.
And do you do this in person or via Zoom or
I did mine virtually.
no, I mean now with your clients, how do you interact with them?
My clients, I do Zoom. My clients come from all over the country. Some of them are based in Hong Kong, Australia, Saudi Arabia.
Fantastic. What an interesting job you've got. You must be interacting with people, at all different walks of life, at all different points in their career from, as you point out, different places in the globe.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. It's a fabulous way to, meet people, and sometimes great to see that, they're in a place that I was once in, right? Trying to find themselves, and trying to find their path career-wise.
Yep.
So
have you found your path career-wise now? Is this it? Or do you think there's going to be more metamorphoses in the future?
There might be more. And who's to say? I'm all about going with the flow in this. And so
are you still in Manhattan?
I'm in Long Island right now.
Whereabouts in Long Island?
Freeport, Long Island. South Shore of Long Island.
So you travel you travel virtually around the world. You could locate almost anywhere you want to be in the world, but you're still living in one of the most expensive places in the world.
I guess, yeah.
So you said you wanted to also talk about being interview ready. What's being interview ready?
Basically, so I always tell my clients to prep stories, just as I would have them do for their resumes. Have examples of their experience, especially key accomplishments that they can speak to at the interview. And I find this to be really good when answering situational based or behavioral based questions. For example, when they ask you to tell them about a time you completed a specific project, or describe a moment when you had to deal with an irate client, or explain complex technical information to management. I always think that it's good for the job seekers when they're applying for roles and when they're reviewing the job descriptions to anticipate some questions that they may be asked.
Yep.
And to start preparing for them and to start preparing their stories way before they get called for an interview. Because the last thing you want is to get called for an interview and they want you to come in or to do a Zoom interview in 2 days. And so you're effectively crashing to be interview ready, right? I think starting very early is great. It helps build confidence. It'll get you more relaxed when you get called for a job interview, which can build a lot of nerves in a lot of people. And you'll be able to go into the interview confident, ready with your stories, and ready to impress the interviewer.
Do you do trial interviews?
Yes, I do.
With the person via Zoom?
Yeah, I do it via Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just one or more than one?
It depends on the client. I have packages where they can purchase 3 interview sessions at once, or they can just purchase 1 session interview at a time. I have a resume writing package that includes 2 interview coaching sessions. So it's really up to them. It's up to them where they are in their job search process. Most clients will purchase 1 session if they want to be prepared for just 1 upcoming interview. I have clients who purchase the 3 sessions package if they're starting and they're very early in the job search process and they want to use it as a way to help them prepare just in case they get called for an interview.
And when you're doing the interview, are you a nice interviewer or a tough interviewer?
I'm a nice interviewer. I think, especially early in the stage, I want them to really think through their responses. How are they going to answer it? What stories are they going to use? And then we'll go over it again in the session. So the sessions Typically 2 hours, can be 2 hours long. On my site, I say it's an hour, but I always have a buffer, 1 hour buffer in between sessions, just in case. I want to make sure that they're ready and can anticipate any number of possible questions that could come up in the job interview.
So I had a mentor that I mentioned earlier that suggested you've got to do a couple of trial interviews with more than just one person, so that you got used to different styles of interviews. And after you built up your confidence with, 2 or 3 trial interviews, he said, then you got to have it with me again. And I'm going to be the tough interview, because I want you to experience the tough interview and know you can handle it before you ever have to handle it in real life. What do you think of that? Is that a good idea or not?
I think that's a great idea, actually. I think that's a very good idea to have them. Most people may not have 2 or 3 different people that they can go to and ask for help. But if they do, I completely suggest that they do that. And if they want to come back to me and I'll be the tough interviewer, absolutely. But one of the things that I tell my clients is that it's a two-way process, this interview. The interview wants to assess that if you have the required skills and knowledge for the job, and if you're going to be a right fit for the company. But you also want to make sure that this company is going to be the right fit for you, and the person who's interviewing you, who may be your future boss, is somebody that you can work under, right? There's been a lot of times when people went to the interview and may have seen red flags. They got offered the position, they did the job, and within a month they were gone, right? Because the company
didn't watch those flags, didn't listen to them.
Some of those flags was just they didn't value their employees, is what I heard. Or another one was they constantly clashed with the supervisor, and it was just a matter of personality that just couldn't be overcome, no matter how hard we tried. And it's always these things where they see it in the interview, but they put it off to the side because they really wanted the job, or they really wanted to work for the company. And sometimes you really don't get to know your supervisor or the company until you're really in the job. So
I think that's important, but also, having some questions about the company, its culture, its organization, the style of work, et cetera, which helps answer some of those questions. But I got to tell you, the biggest frustration as a recruiter or as an interviewer that I have is when you say, do you have any questions for me? And the person's got no questions, and they haven't looked at the company. They don't know anything about it. They're not prepared. They haven't invested the time or effort.
I always tell my clients to prepare at least 2-3 questions at the interview, and sometimes to be an active listener when an interviewer is talking to you.
No question.
Because you may have a question from what they've said. But also, if you do have questions and you ask the questions, to listen how they respond. If they're very vague and general, sometimes I can say that could be a red flag. Sometimes if you're asked about the company, sometimes you don't get the complete picture. I'm not saying that's with all companies, but there may be with some. And so you never know. I've just had clients tell me in the past, they were happy when they got offered the position, but after about a month or so, they realized that this company is not exactly what they thought it would be, and they had to leave.
You didn't mention anything about cover letters.
Cover letters are important. I do understand that there are some people that don't think that it's important. And to be quite honest, I don't doubt that there are hiring managers or recruiters that don't read cover letters. But I think it's important to have, just in case. Sometimes you'll come across a job posting that says we will not review your resume without a cover letter. And sometimes cover letters are necessary to explain certain instances that may pose as red flags when reviewing your resume. For example, if you're applying for a job in Chicago and you live in New York, they're going to wonder, why are you applying for this job here? You want to address both in the resume and the cover letter your plans of relocating to Chicago and when. If you have a big gap in your employment, in your work experience, you want to be able to address that. Why was the gap there? What did you do during the gap? If you're recently unemployed and you have been unemployed for a while, you want to address that in the cover letter as well. I think the cover letter is not to be used shouldn't be used to repeat what's in the resume, but should be used to add additional information that can't be said in the resume.
What are some other things that you recommend? Do you recommend thank you notes after the interview?
Absolutely. Send a thank you note directly to the person that interviewed you, or if it was more than one person, send them each a separate thank you letter, thanking them for their time and for inviting you for the interview. You may want to reiterate why you think you're the ideal candidate for this position, maybe one or two sentences, and end it with, I look forward to hearing you shortly about the interview process. But it's always great to send an email, I think.
Not a letter or a card, an email.
You can send cards. I don't personally, when I was in HR, I've gotten cards and I've gotten emails. It didn't really sway me or the others in any direction. It was nice to see. But emails are just fine.
Any other recommendations?
I would just say that with the job search process, you may come across a lot of rejections, and not to take them personally. Don't let that be something that questions your skills, your knowledge, and don't let it ruin your motivation in the job search process. People get rejected for a lot of reasons, and it has absolutely nothing to do with their skills. It could be that they filled a position internally, or it could be something like they stopped the hiring process for that position. You never know. But it might also be a blessing in disguise to get that rejection, just leaving you open for another position that's better suited for you.
Judy, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. If people want to access your services, how do they do that? Is there a website they go to?
Yeah, they can go to www.hiwcoaching.com.
hiwcoaching.com.
Yes.
Excellent. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting with Judy Williams. She is a career coach and a resume writer. She got into this kind of in a circuitous kind of way. She dropped out of college. She went through a soul searching time period. Then she zoomed back in and got two masters and a bachelor in quick succession. She got a job in e-marketing with the Met, which the Metropolitan Opera, which is fascinating. I want to talk and hear more about that because it was always my dream to be more exposed to the Met. I was president of my local arts council, and so I have a real affinity for the arts and opera. And then she got into ultimately real estate and HR, and through that process, she found out that she was spending more time helping people with their careers, coaching, and writing resumes than she was doing her real estate business. And so she got her certificate in transformational coaching, and has been doing this now full time for a while, and helps people from around the world and all different parts in their career. Judy, it's been a pleasure hearing some of your suggestions. Let me ask you one last question, if I could. If someone just lost their job and came to you for help, what would you tell them?
The first thing I would do is tell them to find any way possible to calm their minds. I know losing a job is never easy, and it can cause a lot of anxiety. But I don't want them to get really nervous to the point where they get so desperate and they pick any job that comes their way. I also ask that they think about what their next direction is. For many people, when they lose their job, they realize that this really wasn't the career path that they wanted to be in, right? And they come to realize that they have this opportunity to do something different, to do something that they've always wanted to do. So I would say use this time that you're unemployed to think about if you want to go in a different direction, to do your research, to look at ways of how to get your foot in the door. If you need specific certifications, by all means, use the time to get them. Also, use your time to volunteer, searching for volunteer opportunities that will let you use your experience. For example, if you were an accountant, maybe find a church or a nonprofit organization that needs a bookkeeper or an accountant to help them, right? It'll be a great way to make sure that you keep your skills current until you find a full-time position. And you could potentially make really good contacts with someone who may know of a position down the line.
Great suggestions. Thank you so much. Again, if people want to access your services, how do they do that?
They can visit my website at www.hiwcoaching.com.
hiwcoaching.com. Judy Williams from New York. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So I think that this has been a really helpful conversation today. And I think that some of the things that I've drawn from it, the obvious ones about, updating your LinkedIn profile and getting a good resume and stuff like that, are critically important. But some of the other things that Judy mentioned are really important. And that is spending the time to figure out who you are and what you want to do. And it comes down to this thing. Do you want to live to work or work to live? And figuring that out, I think that's key. Finding out what your passion is. And it's interesting that Judy went through this metamorphosis herself, where she was depressed, didn't like what she was doing, didn't want to become an accountant, and ended up going into English literature. And so, that's kind of, the reality of the world is that lots of us go through these struggles and try to figure out what we want and who we really are. The other thing that I really liked about Judy, lots of her comments, but one of them that really stuck with me, and I really believe in this, is the engagement strategy. And actually actively thinking about how you're going to engage. And, it's lots of people think about networking and some people have, termed the line that you've got to work your net, or, if you only access your contacts when you need them, it's too late. You got to be, cultivating those contacts ahead of time. But thinking about an engagement strategy, whether it be through posting on LinkedIn the way that Judy was talking about, or going out and accessing points of view of what you should be doing from 50 of your contacts and friends, whatever it is, I think that's key. And then I guess the last thing, and this is probably the truth of almost any activity we're involved in, but Judy talked about making a daily habit. 2 a day. And that's how we get good at anything and become successful at anything. And so 2 resumes, 2 interviews, 2 connections, whatever it is, setting that goal and sticking to it. Anyway, some great suggestions from Judy Williams. Check her out on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you're interested, I think it's hiwcoaching.com.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Good night.